Hello and welcome, everyone. Before we get started, we just want to acknowledge that we're coming to you from the traditional territories of Ikwikaplam and Silk. We also want to acknowledge our Métis community and their contributions, and to welcome our guest tonight, Lisa Moses. Lisa grew up in Merritt and is a member of the Lower Nicola Indian Band. She attended Nicola Canford and Merritt Secondary School. Lisa explored different career paths such as hospitality, the snowboard industry, which I'm excited to ask her about, agriculture, and Lisa spent 4 years at the University of Fraser Valley as an agricultural technician in horticulture and ruminant animal health, and she's currently working in industry in mining for Highland Valley as the Community and Indigenous Affairs Coordinator. So Lisa, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and to answer all of these questions.
Awesome. We're excited to have you. So we'll jump right in and with the first one. And can you tell us a little bit about your current occupation? What is it that you really do?
Yeah, so I work obviously in the mining industry. I work as a community and Indigenous affairs coordinator. And so in our department, we work on the social responsibility side of mining. So we, in the mining industry, you think about haul trucks, you think about blasting, you think about all the workers out on the floor doing crushing, but there's also a lot more to mining than just operations, and that is social responsibility. So keeping transparent of the work that we do, keeping our communities updated about current activities and projects that we're up to. And we're a large open pit copper mine, and we are one of the largest in North America. And we have over 1,400 employees and 4 municipalities that we work with in 17 different Indigenous groups. So our goal is to maintain transparency, communication, manage our social impacts of our operation, to do community engagement, to do economic benefits back to our community as well through community investment, and many others like fundraising campaigns. We do tours. We conduct the relationship between our mine site and our Indigenous groups. And we also facilitate our cultural awareness training for our employees and contractors. So huge, huge bucket.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like it. And just to dig into that a little bit more, can you just elaborate on some of those, like your specific duties and responsibilities that come with your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a list here. It's a large list. So I deal with the public feedback. So in mining, we're required to have a feedback mechanism, which allows the community to communicate with us about concerns or about questions about recruitment and hiring, or questions about our activities just in general. And what I do is I connect the community to the subject matter expertise on site so that we could get a response. And another large piece of my role is social impact. So what we like to do is, we have to be accountable for any impacts that are internal and external of our mine site. So that could be environmental, such as dust or light, or impacts, like noise. And so our operation is responsible for coming up with the understanding and mitigations that they're responsible for. So I oversight that and report back and just check in with our operations. Another big piece is our fundraising campaign. So I do a lot of fundraising throughout the year, but one of our largest ones is the United Way campaign. And so our employees, it's very driven by our employees, and they raise a minimum of $400,000 a year that go to support our not-for-profit organizations. So it's one of the largest regional campaigns that takes up a lot of my time through October, November. So I'm looking back and forth. I have a bunch of notes. And what's another thing? So my background is agriculture. I'm an agriculture technician and spent 4 years working with that. But I also lead the cattle range management, which means supporting our surrounding tenure holders and updating them on our mining activities. So, making sure that our fences are in place, making sure if there's any changes or activities that could impact, the surrounding area or their activities in general. During a time of releasing their cattle onto the tenure. So maintaining that relationship and keeping an open line of communication. And another piece I do is community engagement. So at the beginning of the year, we have a large list and we call it our engagement strategy. And so our goal is to identify areas to reach out to the community. So it could be through workshops, it could be booking meetings with our local government, it could be booking meetings with our Indigenous groups. It's, hosting tours for specialty requests such as our Indigenous communities, our local municipalities, and our school districts. So the list goes on and on and on. What is another? I also lead cultural awareness training. So a really big part of the work that we do is when you're working with 17 Indigenous groups, it's really important for our employees to know the importance of the work that we're doing and respecting Indigenous rights and the impact we can have on surrounding communities. And the positive impacts that we can make when we work together. And it's a regulatory requirement in industry, and it's a big part of the work that we do. And another really fun part is community investment. So anything around health, education, art, we get a budget at the beginning of the year, and we get to give back to our communities for organizations that have prioritized, doing good initiatives in town. So we like to support that in many ways, and we review that on a monthly basis. So that is my work in a nutshell. It's a lot, and I'm sure you have a lot of questions, but I'll probably wrap it up there. There's a few more things, but I could be here all day.
Yeah, that certainly is a large portfolio, and it does lead to a lot of other questions. But we'll start with, can you describe what your workplace or work environment looks like, and whether you work alone or as part of a team?
Yeah, so I work as a part of a team. We have a big role to play, and we have to work together in order to make all of this community engagement initiatives roll out in place. So we plan at the beginning of the year. I would say that 60% of my role is administration, calling, emails, phone calls, Zoom meetings, team meetings. And I would say 40% of my work is executing that engagement strategy that's rolled out at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
So do you ever have to travel outside of the office, or does most of your work take place in the office environment?
Yeah, so I'll often, during a normal year when it's not COVID, we will drive up to the mine site, and we're there mostly every day. And then I would say I spend, at least once or twice a week out in the community. And we also have a merit office, which is located across from the post office. And so we call that our community engagement. A big part of being a community practitioner is getting to know your community. The more you spend time in your community, the more you understand priorities, positive and negative development projects that are going on in the communities. So a big part of our job is being out there and supporting non-for-profits or community development or spending time in our Indigenous communities.
So can you describe what a typical day or a typical week on the job would look like for you?
Yeah, so a typical day. So we obviously communication is super key with our team. We all have roles and responsibilities. that is related to us in particular. So we meet up first thing in the morning. We have a big group Teams meeting and we communicate, what our status is on our activities and our community engagement. And then I'll often go through my emails. So managing feedback, it's one of the first things I do to make sure that, we're responding to the public. You could see us during a week or during the summer months, often out in the community. Summertime is our most busiest time of the year. So we support things like the canoe pole or emergency response. And yeah, it really varies. It depends on what's going on in a community. And over the past years, communities' priorities have been emergency response. So we've been spending a lot of time out there and talking and working through community development and ways we can support during these hard times.
Yeah, I think that was actually the first time I met you. You guys, you and my partner Bailey were picking up things for the evacuees from the Lytton fire, and that's when we first crossed paths.
Totally, yeah. That was an unexpected day and a change of my office hours. That was for sure.
I bet. So I think kind of going on that same memorable events. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Let's go back. How about some things that you like most about your work, and then some things that you find challenging?
Yeah, I think I love working with people. I love talking with people. I like responding to the community. I love community development. I love seeing what the community does with our community investments. And I love supporting the community. I think a big part of the positives in my work is I get to see that economic benefit expand and make a broader impact, than we could have ever imagined that it could make. So community investment, I would say, is one of my favorite part of the work that we do. And I would say that every day is pretty challenging. When working with community, it's very dynamic. You don't know what you're going to be reviewing the next day. Things can change in a heartbeat, and community priorities or initiatives can change overnight. And we know this by the past 3 years, COVID, fires, and floods. And so the challenging part is being quite dynamic and changing your whole workload in a heartbeat. So that can be quite challenging, especially if you've planned in a year in advance. So you have to be quite dynamic and flexible with everything that's going on.
Yeah, and to come back to the question I was going to ask you previously is around some memorable experiences from your work. What really sticks out for you?
Yeah, so I had a really cool experience a couple years ago. So, much like today, we like to get out and talk to youth about, the mining industry and what opportunities there are. And we also sponsor an organization that's called Inspire, and it's an Indigenous awards ceremony that recognizes some of the most influential Indigenous Canadians in Canada, making change in environment and laws and healthcare and in industry. And it just recognizes the resiliency that Indigenous people have. And our company is a huge supporter of that. And it was really moving, and I felt very inspired. And I was just very excited to see a lot of the Indigenous youth attend these award ceremonies, because it just demonstrates that, you can come from small communities and make big change as long as you're passionate about the work that you do. And I was just very moved. So a really big moment in my career, and I was just happy to support the event.
That is so true. It's such a valuable message to deliver, that it doesn't matter where you come from. If you're coming from a small community, you can still be involved in meaningful work.
Absolutely.
So the next question is, what pathway did you take to get to your current position in terms of education, background, and work experiences?
Yeah. Okay. So great question. I had no idea I was going to end up in the mining industry. It never crossed my mind. I had spent, but what I do know and is that I enjoy working with people, and I enjoyed volunteering quite often, and I enjoyed problem solving and coming up with ways to support people. It's in my nature. And I spent some time in the hospitality industry in Whistler at the Four Seasons Resort. So we spent a lot of time in training around communication and dialogue. So that was really important with a five-star resort. And I spent time coaching as a snowboard instructor and as a coach. And you have to learn how to work with people. Everybody has different needs and everybody has different learning curves. And, you know, after I went through that phase, I then went to university to study agriculture. So I did landscaping in Whistler as well over the summers and coaching in the winters. And I was very like hands-on and getting to know the community and spending lots of time getting to meet people. And it was just my strength. And so I went to university and I studied agriculture, but a lot of that was half business, half hands-on. So we spent some time in marketing, communication, agriculture business. And another piece of that was volunteering in community gardens and community development around community gardens. And over that time, you know, I took a lot of leadership roles on implementing that and understanding and diversifying groups that I was working with. University is so cool because you get to meet different cultures and different people, and you get to, you know, learn and understand that cultural diversity. And I just think, you know, that's my favorite part of life and living, is just getting to know about cultures and different people, and how can I support and how can I take down my barriers to understand and put myself in other people's shoes. So I really enjoyed that part. And when I seen this position that came up, I applied for HVC. And I know this is bad. Shouldn't recommend this, but I applied and I was just adamant in my mind that I was going to get this job. So I sat for about a week. And then after a week, I decided maybe I should apply for more jobs. But I got that phone call back. And I studied everything about community practitioners and community Indigenous affairs. And I, you know, got a good understanding, and I got into it and I excelled. I excelled working with people. I excelled at event management. And I owe all of that experience prior to entering this role to working in hospitality and those dialogue skills, to volunteering for events, for community development around developing community gardens, and just putting myself out there was really the pathway to this position.
Yeah, those are some really great examples of how your experience, you may not even think anything of it at the time, but how it can build towards where you're going to eventually end up. I know students often express that they're kind of worried about making the wrong decisions and not doing what they're supposed to, but it's interesting how life has a way of falling into place for you. And yours is certainly a really good example of that.
Thank you.
Can you tell us what some other career options are available for someone planning to pursue a career in mining or in the mining industry?
Yeah, so in the mining industry, there's many different positions. So, for our team, we focus on social responsibility and relationship management. And then there's operations such as trades. So the maintenance department, millwrights, carpenters, truck drivers. We need cleaners. It's a small community. We need human resources, accounting. With 1,400 employees, there is a lot of work. And, we've been mining in this area since the 1940s. So it's a pretty big operation, and it requires a lot of people to run it.
So thinking about, you say you've been here since the 1940s, and then looking kind of more into the future, what does that look like for your occupation? Is there still going to be a demand for people with your, education and skills? And then, are there societal changes or technological advances that are going to, add to or take away from a role like yours?
No, you know what? I think there is a very high demand. I think social responsibility, I wouldn't say is new, but it's expanding. And industry requires regulatory participation from our local communities and from our Indigenous groups. And it's really important work around collaboration. And so the importance of that is pretty, I would say, what's the word, pretty consistent with industry. And I would say the demand is more than less. And I don't think you could ever replace technology with people and building relationships, which is super key. And I think if anything, the work requirements in industry extraction requires a lot more engagement than people realize. So I think the demand is high, and you could see community engagement coordinator requests or community engagement specialists or social responsibility leads or agreement implementation coordinators, economic development coordinators. These all play a huge role in social responsibility of mining.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you. How about for someone that's a young person and is listening to this and going, oh, this sounds really interesting. What kind of personal attributes, skills, interests would you say would make a good fit?
Yeah, that you like working with people. You enjoy people, you enjoy problem solving, you enjoy conflict resolution, you enjoy working with others, you enjoy working as a team, you enjoy reviewing human rights, you enjoy doing the right thing. I would say those are some key aspects. So I feel like if you enjoy working with the community, you enjoy helping, you enjoy supporting, and you like a fast-paced environment, I think you would enjoy working on the social responsibility side of mining.
Great advice. Is there anything a high school student could or should be doing right now to help prepare for a career in your field?
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. I think in any just preparing for any career, the best way to gain experiences in volunteering is volunteering. I know it sounds super cliche, and I wasn't the biggest volunteer person until I got to university. And once I started volunteering, I just fell in love with it, and I fell in love with playing those leadership roles. It became a strength, and I would say, prior to considering career choices, explore what's out there, explore different volunteerings, different occupations, and find out what you love. I think they say that you change a few career paths in your time, and I think that's okay. And you don't need to be set on one thing, but just find honestly what you're passionate about and go for it and learn about it and accept those opportunities that come your way. I have this thing where I call myself Yes Man. There's like that movie where it's Yes Man. And when people ask me for help or support or need something or an opportunity arises, I just, I think about Yes Man and I go, yes, I will take that opportunity. I will support you. If you need help, I will be there. So you know, what goes around comes around. And when you support people and you volunteer, or, you know, you show leadership roles, it all comes back around. So yeah, find what you're passionate about and go forth.
Yeah, volunteering is a great way to sort of learn a little bit more about a particular field, in addition to actually networking and meeting the
Yes.
people that might be able to give you a job one day. So yeah, great
Oh,
advice.
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Do you have any suggestions for students who would like to explore your line of work in more detail? Is there anything, like you mentioned the volunteering, but is there anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, actually, you can go online. You know, when we're looking at careers around the type of work that we do in community Indigenous affairs, you will find um, applications or people requesting, you know, employees for their industry or workforce around social responsibility. So taking a look at roles and responsibilities for community practitioners such as economic development or communication specialists, or, you know, Indigenous governance, like take a look at what some of these roles are requiring and implement it to some of your studies. And it may not cover all of it. You don't need to be a massive subject matter expertise in this whole big social responsibility piece, but pick a piece and start working at it, and the rest comes with experience. So choose one, work at it little bits of a time, and that would probably be my best suggestion. Take a look, see what's out there.
Yeah, and other, yeah, great advice there. I really like that. We'll share that with students actually, just generally too. Before I ask you the last question, I'm just going to sneak one in here too, because I know that we work with students, Jennifer and I, that ask about employment at Highland Valley. Could you speak to that? Like, what does that generally look like for maybe a high school student or a young adult that wants to gain employment there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you would do is you would apply online at teck.com. So we have operations all over Canada and all over the world. You can see what positions are available. So you would create a profile online. You need a minimum of grade 12 and experience in the workforce. You need a driver's license. And you can apply for HVC. That is the bare minimal for some of our entry level positions, such as truck driving, building service workers, and some of the mill positions. And so a lot of that training comes from on site, or you can apply for some of the red seal. So if you're doing some of the trades and you decide to go in that direction, you need to have the red seal for some of those more specific jobs. If you're interested, you know, in geology or other engineering works or human resources or accounting, obviously you would have some background or 5 years of experience in order to apply for some of these positions at site.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And just as we kind of wrap up here, any big general career advice for young people as they're out there exploring and making decisions about their future?
Yeah, I would say, you know, sometimes we underestimate ourselves and think that, you know, this job seems way over my head, and I'm not sure if I should apply. I don't know if I have the experience. Sometimes you just need to put yourself out there and go through the interview process. And I suggest, you know, applying. You just never know. And those interview processes are so valuable for you. And ask tons of questions, like be extremely vulnerable and, you know, let people know that I have experience in this, or, you know, I excel in this, or what can I do to work on so that I can get this position in the future. Really important to just be vulnerable with it. You're gonna win some and you're gonna lose some, but it's really all about that experience. And you know, I once had a manager tell me, sometimes it's really not about how smart you are, but how well you work with people and demonstrate leadership. And I think that's really important to understand. Sometimes we start off really shy, but you learn and you gain experience to work with people and others and as a team. And that all comes with experience, and you will get there. It's just sometimes it takes time, sometimes years, but you will.
Great advice. Thank you so much. And just want to say, Lisa, thanks again for joining us this evening and answering some of our questions. And we're really excited to have had you.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time. It's so much appreciated. And hopefully we'll get to have you in a live session at some point in the future.
Yeah, that would be so fun. I'd appreciate
Excellent.
that as well. Thank you guys. Good
Okay.
luck.
Yes. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
See you.
Yeah, take care. Bye.